Welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine with Pick and Pay, and this week two different wine labels that have both got really interesting stories to them. One is a winemaker who was with a very well-known and well-established brand who's now kicked off on her own and is doing rather well, and the other a brand that's reasonably new, has got a pretty cool story, some awesome labels and some very nice wine to boot. Well, we start with the first of those, and Erika Obermeyer. Now, Erika Obermeyer you may have heard of. You might think you haven't drunk her wine. You probably have. The reason for that is that Erika used to be the winemaker covering the still wine at Graham Beck. The bubbles all done by Peter Ferreira, but it was Erika who was doing wines like the William and the Joshua, wines I really enjoyed making, and wines that are no longer available after Graham Beck made the decision to simply focus on their Cab Classique and do away with those still options. So Erika went off on her own and has created a range of wine that I got to sample with her a few weeks ago. We were at Saint Restaurant, David Higgs' spot, and we sat down for a wine tasting, and I'd initially allocated about half an hour. I had quite a busy day, no problem, I'll have a quick taste. 2 hours later, we were still enjoying what is some exceptional wine. And that shouldn't come as a surprise. Erika was named as Newcomer of the Year in the latest edition of the Platter Awards. She's somebody with incredible experience. She's got an enormous skill. There's a wonderful story told about her being a kid and how she could always pick out the right fruit because of an extraordinary sense of smell when bounding about and playing with her mates. And that has translated into the ability to make some exceptional wine. And what she's doing now, while might not have the backing of a big house like Graham Beck, it does allow her to pick and choose where she wants to make her particular wine. So she's getting, for instance, some grapes for a Cabernet Sauvignon that we'll choose in just a moment from the foot of the Helderberg, and ensuring that she gets the perfect fruit for exactly the wine that she wants to make. And that Cabernet Sauvignon got 5 stars. It is a glorious wine, and we'll celebrate it in just a moment. But we'll start with this. And as you can see, certainly when I tested it, it's very much a work in progress. No, that's not a new avant-garde, very offhand, look how cool we are label. It's simply scribbled on there because the real labels hadn't arrived as yet. And when they do arrive, I'm sure they'll look like the other Erika O range. So it is the Erika O Syrah 2017, but it might just be called something else because Erika, when looking at a possible name, went with my initial suggestion, The Nickel, as signed by Erika. So what is already a reasonably expensive wine is now surely worth millions more. Now, and the reason I am tasting this is not just because it appeals to my ego, she's put my name on it, that's really cool, but more importantly because of all the wines I tasted, this was one that really stood out. And there are a lot of contenders. She's got a beautiful Clonacluf grape Sauvignon Blanc. She has a wine called the Flabbergast de Cinsault that is quite delightful. The Meticulous, she's got some fun names for some wine that can be a little fun. That Flabbergast Cinsault is definitely fun, but there's an underlying serious level to all of them because she is a properly serious winemaker. So this is the first one I want to try today from the range that we went through. This is her 2017 Syrah. Now, there's a constant battle in the Nickel household. Mrs. Nickel likes big, strong, broad-shouldered reds, Bordeaux blends, Cabernet Sauvignon and Shiraz, not Syrah. Now, for many people, the difference is a case of semantics, but if you look at it in detail, you'll often find the Syrah will lean towards the slightly lighter style, the Shiraz the slightly more rugged style. My wife is a lawyer. I've long since learned not to argue, so we agree she doesn't drink Syrah, but she's more than happy to have plenty of Shiraz. But even this one, I think, might just swing her around because it's a beautiful combination of what for me is all that is best about Syrah. It's got that suppleness, that smoothness, that real elegance to it, but without losing the structure and the depth that one might normally lean a little more towards a Shiraz with. So great combination, beautiful soft berry nose. And a quite delightful wine. There's a dark fruit ridge running through it, but seamlessly so. 2017, so still young, but completely soft and smooth on the palate, and yet without losing that more robust fruit feel to it. So a beautiful balance, and not really surprising because Erika did make a habit of beautifully balanced wines when with the Graham Beck operation. And I'm almost in two minds with regards to Mrs. Nicol, because I'd love her to love this wine, but if she doesn't, it means I get to have all of it myself, and that's no bad thing. So that is really, really nice indeed. But however well that Syrah does, it will have to match up to this. Now this just ticks boxes galore if you want to buy a really good bottle of wine. You can see there at the bottom, Newcomer of the Year from the 29 Platter Awards, the 5 stars for this. A Sauvignon Blanc from Stellenbosch. He almost struggled to make it badly if it's a 2015 Cabernet Sauvignon from Stellenbosch. It was just that good a year, as everybody now knows. And as you will have seen from earlier this year when I was on the Absa Cape Epic searching for Cabernet Sauvignon, it had sold out at most of the estates I went to. It is a sought after varietal and vintage in combination. So not entirely unexpected really that a winemaker of this calibre, who has already got the accolades that Platter has given them, gets a further 5 stars for this 2015 Cabernet Sauvignon. And already you're off to such a good start. The colour is deep, it's dark, it's rich. The bottle itself, this is perfect murder weapon stuff. This is a heavy piece of glass. You bottle somebody with this, they're really not coming back. Not that I would suggest it, other than for people who mix wine with Coke or put ice in Sauvignon Blanc. Other than that, do not use this bottle with murderous intent. Ooh. And that's a wondrous nose. There's so much going on there. You're getting a bit of green ripeness to it, almost nudging in a sibling Cabernet Franc style. But on top of that, a bit of smokiness. It just wisps up your nostrils and cools to you. And that's a call I think I'll answer. Yeah. And it's that classic combination of the rich red fruit, a bit of tobacco to it, a bit of leather to it. You can still get a little bit of pronunciation on those tannins, but those are going to smooth down. This is about 4142, so 4,100, 4,200 rand a case or thereabouts. That's a fair amount of money. That's about 700 rand a bottle. And so I would buy the case, but I would keep it. It's drinking very nicely now, but another 5-10 years, this is going to develop into something quite iconic, and I say that deliberately. I think the aesthetic leads to it, but far more importantly, what is inside. This is Erika Obermeyer at her very best, combined with South African grapes at their very best. A terrific winemaker, a wonderful vintage, a great part of the world in the Helderberg for Cabernet Sauvignon grapes. This, in a year that is already teeming with accolade and celebration and award, I think this, even in that company, is going to stand out in due course. So get that case, set it aside, 5-10 years time, start bringing it out, and your patience will be richly rewarded. And by then, 700 rand will be worth almost nothing, so it'll be such a good investment. 2 down and 2 to go, and from the house of Erika Obermeyer, so to a wine that I have to confess I looked at with a little bit of skepticism. All too often I'll be travelling and I'll find a South African wine that I feel just tries too hard on the marketing when it should be giving a little bit more credit to the wine itself. And that is wine that, I don't know, does South Africa long-term favours. It's wine with big pictures of giraffes on the front, or a couple of Zulu shields, or an elephant with a trunk wrapped around a bottle. Stuff you'll normally find in Tesco or Sainsbury at 3, 4, 5 quid a bottle. And yes, it plays into the Africa narrative, but to me it just doesn't speak to South African wine. That's not what South African wine is about. And so when I see wine with a big African cow on the front, part of me is thinking, well, is that falling into a similar kind of storyline? Is this about the marketing rather than the wine? Well, the first time I had the wine was actually on board a flight. South African Airways, much maligned. They run their business much like the Greeks run their economy. They have new people running it or not running it every 10 minutes. There's a lot they get wrong. But one of the things South African Airways do get right, and I do fly on them a lot, they've got, I think, some really good crew. I've generally had really good flights in terms of being looked after. And they also celebrate South African wine. I was on a flight out to Hong Kong last week. There were 7 wines available. All 7 of them were South African, from a trio of beautiful whites, including some lovely Jordan white, some Bonnevale Merlot, which drank beautifully. They had some Cape Vintage at the end, our South African answer to port. And on top of that, at the very start, when you got on board, there was some Cap Classique. So no French champagne, but a celebration of South Africa instead. It's a really cool platform to showcase South African wine to the world. And for all their other misdemeanors and their absolutely horrendous financial management, the fact that they're celebrating South African wine is at least one reason to give South African Airways a little credit. And it was on South African Airways where I first tried the Survivor brand, and I saw it, and at that stage this wine had just arrived. It had been delivered to the cellar from the Overhex Wine Company, who are the guys who run this particular brand. Oh, well, let me give it a try. And I tried it with a little hesitation. I wasn't expecting much, and I was quite pleasantly surprised. So I'm now happy to be able to give these 2 bottles of wine a go, and give them a go with a little more of an understanding, because it's not just a nice picture of a car, ooh look, we're in Africa, we'll throw in a windmill and a field in the background and lots of tourists will buy it. This particular cow is Nguni, and the Nguni cattle are known for many unique characteristics. They're very hardy, they're very celebrated, they're very valuable. But on top of that, this particular cow was one that was in a cattle truck. Now, I don't know if this is a true story or urban legend, but they tell it very enthusiastically, so I'm going to err on the side of believing them and say it is a true story. And apparently it was this Nguni that leapt out of the cattle truck as it came to a standstill, arrived at the farm where these wines are made, and became the matriarch of this herd of Nguni cattle. So it's a pretty cool story. There's now a full herd that's flourishing, and it is the matriarch in question who has lent her image, and by extension her name, as the survivor of leaping off that cattle truck and starting a new generation of her family, to this range of wine. And it's wine that's done quite well of late. Old Mutual gave their Pinotage its top trophy a little earlier on this year, and the Chardonnay, which is this one here, and the Wild Yeast Syrah have got a number of awards recently. In fact, the Syrah, if I'm not mistaken, got a gold medal at Provine, the big German wine fest that proves that Germans don't only drink large jugs of beer in Munich, they're also pretty good with their wine. So some nice accolades, a really cool story, and some wine that is starting to get quite a bit of attention. So this is the first one, the Wild Yeast Chardonnay. It's not a commercially made yeast, but a yeast that has a little more character to it, a little more difficult to control, but the results can be quite special. And that is what I'm hoping for. This is about 175 rand a bottle, so that's not the cheapest Chardonnay. Ooh, but already, already that's coming through very, very nicely indeed. It's a bit of a citrus edge to that, on the back of a nice vanilla brioche base. These grapes are from Robertson. That limestone soil lends itself to some pretty good Chardonnay, and I've had much of it over the years, led by the wonderful crew down at De Wetshof. And I think this is a lovely tribute to that particular Nguni cow. I'm not sure how much she knows about wine, but I'd like to think that if she did, this would wine she would find would celebrate her appropriately. Nice pale colour, definitely potential to age a little longer, but already a really nicely balanced, not overly creamy, nicely citrus Chardonnay. And as always is the case, although you can taste the oak coming through, and this I think is a French oak. I think they do this in 500-litre barrels, so the wood is there, but it's not overwhelmingly so. It's not smacking you in the face with a plank, which means it's that much more accessible and just a really nice balanced Chardonnay. Ooh, I do like that. Well done, Survivor. And then to the other bottle of Survivor. Now, this one will have its work cut out because we tried some of Erika's Syrah earlier, which she named after me, so it has to be amazing. So how will this one do against Erika's? Same story, same Nguni, the traditional cattle of the Zulu people. Same cow on the front there. Hope they're paying image rights, Survivor wine. And not, of course, linked in any way to Nico Panaggio or stranding lots of socially awkward people on an island somewhere in the middle of the Pacific. This is purely Survivor the cow. So this is their wild yeast Syrah. So as with the Chardonnay, not using the commercial yeast, using the wild varietal instead. That's a very unique and distinctive nose. Bit of licorice in there. Back of some black fruit. Slightly darker than Erika's Syrah. So the licorice on the nose drifts through onto the palate, especially at the end, just as it's bidding you farewell, on the back of some nice dark fruit. It's ever so slightly tannic, but that'll smooth out over the next little while. It's won awards in Germany, not, I think, because the Germans like the picture of the cow, and it's a very nice cow on the front, but rather because it is a really good Syrah, a little more intense, a little darker than Erika's version. About 185 rand a bottle, so a little more expensive than ones you might buy, but I think a decent investment, and again, not dissimilar to that Cab Sav, one to maybe leave for a year or two, but also just the aesthetic of it, and it's a really cool story, and stories are at the heart really of all wine. And you bring this out over dinner and you tell people about the story of this MacGyver-like cow that threw itself. I had this vision of the cow doing a somersault and barrel roll and getting back up and heading off to start its new family, and inadvertently giving rise to this Swartland range of wine. So the Survivor, dismissing my fears that it was simply marketing and throwing a cow on the front to get lots of tourists to buy it. It's a cool story, it's a nice background, but Ben the winemaker has created a couple of really nice bottles here, and I'll look forward to trying some of the others, including that Pinotage that recently won that Old Mutual Award. So two to look out for, along with the two from Erika, who's already got an established name, but I think her star is really in the ascent. Although she's done some wonderful stuff at the moment, I almost get the sense that she's only just begun. So Survivor and Erika O, two great South African labels telling some terrific stories, more importantly, making some lovely South African wine. Cheers.